Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 2 for my new podcast. I hope you're enjoying it so far. I don't know what I mean by so far since I've only done one, and that one was about, I'd say like 13 minutes or so. But I'm glad to be returning this week. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get this recorded and up in time because I want to try to get them up between Thursday and Saturday, at least get one up. Some weeks I'm going to try to do a couple. But next week is probably going to be one of those weeks because I got a lot to talk about, and I know for a fact I'm not going to cover everything in today's podcast that I wanted to cover, mainly because I would like to have like a long podcast, but I don't want to have it too long. I want to have it probably, 30, 45 minutes at the most, just because a lot of people that I know listen to it on their lunch break and so on and so forth, so it just makes it easier, and I will be able to consistently put out good content, and the last 20 minutes will not be spent, trying to catch a breath or whatever. So, yeah, thank you for your support. Thank you for returning this week. Remember to give this a thumbs up on YouTube if you're listening to it on YouTube, or be sure to send me a comment on my YouTube video if you download the MP3, and just give me your feedback on how you're liking the podcast so far. Today I'm going to be, talking about a variety of different things, some movies, maybe some music, and sharing a lot of personal stuff. Not personal stuff as in like seriousness, just some stories and stuff about, um, Ryan years back, I guess you could say. And I really wasn't going to cover this to start out with, but on my way home from work tonight, I actually was driving past a drugstore, and I saw a couple of people that were on the side of the drugstore asking people for money, and it was really interesting because um, I guess you could say I've had a history with run-ins and just experiences with homeless, but I don't really consider these people homeless. I mean, there's like, I guess you could say legitimate bums that aren't that they like. I know people that, or I knew people that I knew that they were like, I'm not homeless, man. I'm a bum. That's what I am. I don't want a house. I don't want all. He's like, I'm consider myself a bum. I'm a beach bum. That's basically what you call these like where I'm from because I grew up at the in a basically a beach surfing town. And so, I was driving home tonight and I looked at this drugstore. It was a Walgreens, and I see two people. And obviously, they're going up to people asking for money, so it was at a red light and I could see what they were doing. Well, let's go ahead and flash back to 24 hours earlier. I went by the same exact drugstore to get sinus medicine, and I was walking in, and they came up to me and said, "Hey, um, I have to be up in Atlanta by midnight tonight, and I was wondering if you had any change." Well, obviously, I'm looking at this person, and they look like somebody that may have been, or at least tried out for a role in Breaking Bad. I mean, obviously, they were looking, looking for drugs and needing money for drugs. And I'm usually pretty good at spotting that kind of stuff out just because of my experiences with not necessarily drugs, but just, people with addictions and that kind of thing. And I don't know, it was really, really really, really sad. I had never really had that, type of experience in a long time, but it just kind of made me flash back and how my outlook on, um, I guess you could say life has slightly changed a little bit. Um, and mainly that's just because I got older. I'm, 27 now, and now I'm, cautious and worried when I know people that are going through any kind of addictions, or I run into people that are drug addicts or something like that, and it just made me think about when I was younger. When I was younger, I mean, I grew up in a beach town, and I used to surf all the time, walk everywhere with my surfboard. Um, when I was younger, teenage years, I was involved in some drinking and stuff like that, and I used to be up at the boardwalk on in my city, at the beach basically, and just hang out like with some surfing friends, surf bums, I guess you could say, and just homeless guys that chose to be homeless because they didn't want to pay taxes and have a job and that kind of thing. And these guys actually, got along just fine, having a stress-free life in that way. And I'm not going to pass judgment on them because I mean, I'm not here to judge people in that way on this podcast. I'm just making an observation of something that I noticed and about how it's funny how you change your way of thinking when you grow up. Well, back then I thought, man, that was a cool way to live. Obviously, these guys that I knew back then that used to hang out at the beach were, alcoholics, and I knew for a fact they were doing drugs because they talked about it. But I looked at them in a different way. I looked at almost like it's kind of scary when I think about it. I almost looked up to them in some way, shape, or form because of the carefree, stress-free life that they had. And I mean, I remember I used to be. Um, it's funny because I used to actually play hacky sack. A lot of people that play soccer play hacky sack, and a lot of people that live at the beach have went through a stage where they played hacky sack. Like you have that little hacky sack ball, and you kick it like a soccer ball, and you get in a circle, and you guys all kick it to each other. We used to play that. Me and some friends used to play that with a bunch of beach bums, and we had fun. I mean, it was carefree living. Of course, my parents didn't know I was doing all that stuff, and they would probably kill me if they knew that. So, Mom, Dad, if you're listening, I'm sorry. It was years ago. But yeah, I mean, it's just funny how, last or tonight I was just kind of like, man, it's just such a sad thing that that person's living that kind of life. And then, meanwhile, it was just 10 years ago. I was like, you know what? That doesn't seem like that bad of a life. And it's just weird how your worldview changes just with age, even if it's just from, being 17 to being 27. And there's another story I wanted to kind of mention too. I remember back when I guess you could say it was when I first started dating my wife, and this really is completely unrelated to the fact, other than the fact that these involved some homeless people. And I remember when me and my wife started dating, it was back in 2006. I wanted to go buy her some roses, some flowers from the flower shop. So I went to the flower shop and I was really excited. I was getting ready to go see her and give her flowers. Well, when I was leaving the flower shop, I pulled over, or I turned on my car and started driving straight. And then next thing you know, my car is on a curb. And this isn't like a regular curb like in a parking lot. This is a straight up wall. It was about, um, 2 feet high, I guess you could say. And it was really just a divider between one set of a property to the other, but I didn't even see it because I wasn't paying attention. I drove a Mercury back then, a Grand Marquis, so it was a big car, like a tank almost, and so I didn't notice it. And so my car was basically balancing on this freaking, um, 'cause I drove so fast. That car had a V8, so just like I barely touched the gas, and next thing you know, on a curb. So I'm basically on a curb, and I can't drive anywhere because the wheels are not touching the ground because I'm being held up in the center of the car. And I was like, dang it, I really don't feel like spending $100 or whatever to get this car towed off this in a safe way. And so I had an idea. I had 20 extra bucks on me, so I walked up to the boardwalk and I saw a group of bums, and they were all, obviously asking for money. And I was like, hey guys, if you come here and help me out real quick, I'll, you know, give you a little reward. So I got about six guys. They came over and they helped me lift my car off the curb, and I put the car in neutral, and they helped me drive off. So I went to the nearest gas station after that and bought each of them a six pack of beer, and I bought them a pack of cigarettes for them all to split, and they were the happiest you can be. And I don't know, it was just, I don't know why I mentioned that. I really don't know why I got into this whole thing about being homeless and stuff. I really just wanted to show how it's weird how you know, your outlook on life changes with age. And I had to tell that story of the car situation too because it was just kind of funny. So I've rambled on for about 10 minutes probably about that subject. So let's go ahead and dive into the podcast, the main content, which I wanted to bring up. I asked some people some questions on Facebook, some things I wanted to answer on the podcast because I really, really wanted to do a Q&A type thing, and I didn't really want to just do a video on YouTube about it. I wanted to have, maybe a cool thing to talk about on the, on this. So I went ahead and asked a few people, and I'm gonna go ahead and start. I wrote down, for the most part, who asked me the question. Yeah, I did write down who asked me the questions. Um, but I'm gonna go ahead and start first with Luke Ryan, my buddy Luke. He asked me three questions. One, what would be your dream Blu-ray release? Can be one movie or a series, um, and I could counter in packaging and special features, and also create my own ultimate release. Um, because they're my favorite movies of all time. Well, the first two were tied as my favorite film of all time, The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2. I like 3, but it's not my favorite. So I would love to see a Criterion release of The Godfather 1, 2, and 3 in a trilogy pack with an extra disc of special features on each movie and an extra disc other than this. So that's two, four, six discs for the movies themselves and the special features, and then an extra disc that contains the Godfather saga, which was the Godfather films in chronological order with the deleted scenes, just as a fun option. Um, and then also like a full-on making of the entire trilogy, starting with The Godfather 1, 2, and then 3, but not like the ones that they already have. I'm talking about like a brand new interviews. I want one with Robert Duvall talking about his reasons for not doing Godfather 3, so on and so forth. I want a completely up-to-date one with an epic Criterion cover that is the same as the movie poster. And I mean almost like going back to the VHS tapes, like those paintings of, Vito Corleone, Michael Corleone, and, Michael in Godfather Part 3 on the VHS tapes. If there's one thing I like about, um, I miss about VHSs, are the covers on VHSs. They used very beautiful artwork, and they used, it was fully like hand drawn or painting. And nowadays you just get these generic things with just images of the actors and their names. And The Godfather didn't really have the actors and their names. They just on DVD and Blu-ray, they've just kind of it's just been that simple picture of the lead character on the front cover. And it's slightly boring considering it's an amazing film. And I really miss the VHS. I think the VHS covers of the films were awesome. They were simple but then artistic at the same time. And I wish Criterion would do that. I mean, I doubt Criterion will ever get the Godfather films, but that would be my ultimate, release. Um, Number two? What super director team would you make out of any director, living or dead, meeting a film directed by two notable filmmakers together? And what kind of film would it be? Um, that's a hard one. I literally did not even think about this before I did it. I guess it would be really, really, really cool to see um, Martin Scorsese and Alfred Hitchcock get together to do a film. Now, what kind of film would it be? I would love. Let me see. To be honest with you, I have no clue. What super director team? I mean, I would say Martin Scorsese and Alfred Hitchcock, and then do a film in the Hitchcockian style suspense and twist, but directed by, had the gritty street life feel of Martin Scorsese's 70s films. Maybe even like a Taxi Driver or a, um, Mean Streets in regards to what style. So that'd be pretty cool. Of course, Akira Kurosawa and man, it would be so awesome to see Akira Kurosawa and George Lucas do like a well, it would have been cool if they joint directed the first Star Wars film. But I don't know, you could really put Akira Kurosawa with anybody, and it would probably be awesome. I don't know, that's a hard one. I might have to do a whole nother separate video on that whole thing, on that topic. Okay, if you could make feature-length professional films, what kind would you make? Um, I've actually said this before, and a lot of, actually, I don't know if I've said it before in other videos, but for the longest time, I always said if I became a filmmaker, one, I'd be very simplistic in terms of style because I'd want it to be heavy on great acting, intense acting, um, believable acting, method style acting, I guess you could say. And, you know, I've always said that I think my directing style would be because it's just the way I like to tell a story. Like if I think about making a movie in my head, this is how I think. It's basically a cross between, and it's been like this for like 5 years. I've thought this, a mix between Woody Allen from Annie Hall, Interiors, and Manhattan, mixed with I'm blanking. I guess you could say a little bit of Quentin Tarantino and Martin Scorsese with the camera angles and stuff like that, because I really love um, the real life kind of aspects of Woody Allen's, especially late 70s films and like Interiors, which is really, really dark. And I don't know, I really like that style of filmmaking. It'd be simple camera shots, almost like the style that like Tokyo Story was filmed in. Very simple camera setups. Um, and so I think that's how I would do it. Very simple and really rely on a great screenplay and a amazing acting. I think I would, as an actor or as a director, I would really focus on the look of the film, but not necessarily great camera angles, but more on getting the actors to just, go crazy with the material to where we get the best possible product at the end. So that's probably what I would do, a mix between. And I met Quentin Tarantino in in the way of his camera angles. Like I love how he gets shots of looking out of the trunk. If you look at some of my old short films on my YouTube channel, I made one where I actually opened up with a shot of the trunk opening up, and it was out, facing out. So, strictly, camera angles for that, and especially Martin Scorsese as well. So, let's go ahead and get started on the next question. My wife actually asked me a question, and it is the top three or five or six or whatever must-watch shows of the fall. That's kind of hard for me to say, but these are shows that I'm watching and I love that um, I'm really looking forward to or have already started watching this fall. One, Gotham. I've really loved the whole gritty take on, you know, you know, James, or Commissioner Gordon, was younger when he was, just starting out as a detective, and the grittiness surrounding that, and some of the crime and everything. It's really cool. Number two, I really am into the Goldbergs. I love comedies, so I love throwback style comedies like that takes place in the 80s and it's full of not inside jokes, but like nostalgia, basically. Number three, Bones. I've watched it since day one. I love it, love it, love it, love it. Number four is NCIS LA. My favorite out of all the NCIS shows, mainly because I'm a huge Chris O'Donnell fan and a huge LL Cool J fan, and not necessarily LL Cool J in terms of like music, but I really, I've really liked him acting wise, even though he's not the greatest actor since Halloween H2O. Um, Five is kind of a split between Arrow and The Flash. I'm looking forward to the next season of Arrow, and I'm much looking forward to The Flash. And number six is Person of Interest, Jonathan Nolan's show that is just spectacular. Um, Next is Richard Dolt. He asked me, one, do I have a preference, seeing a movie in a theater or a home? It really depends because you know, theater experiences are anymore like any cinema is just not really fun depending on what kind of if you see the big blockbuster it's very annoying because people are you know making out in front of you chewing really loud behind you giving a commentary of the film to their friend right behind you um, and it's just so annoying because you pay $10 or $15, however much it costs where you're at, to listen to these idiots talk, and you just want to watch the movie. I mean, yes, I know the movie's called Guardians of the Galaxy, you idiot. Well, I don't have to have you in my ear telling me, while you're telling your friend. Um, so really, just for the independent type films, I love. I don't know. I just really love being in a movie theater. I just hate all the crap that goes along with it. Number two, favorite genre. I would have to go with the like crime genre. Mainly gangster slash um, urban noirish type stuff like Taxi Driver to Godfather. So that style. I really love film noir slash gangster slash crime. It's my favorite. Um, aspects of a t- aspects of mine that are key to me liking a movie. Um, screenplay. You could be a terrible director, but have a great screenplay with great acting, and you have a great film. So it's definitely a screenplay and acting for me. We have Ty Tag asked me, number one, favorite movie as a kid. Uh, it's actually Batman, starring Michael Keaton. And that was actually one of my first films I ever loved and became obsessed with. My mom said that when I was a baby, not necessarily when I was a baby, but when I was very young, I would only watch movies with Michael Keaton in it. And Michael Keaton has always been one of my favorite actors. And I remember getting Batman twice when I was younger. One on VHS, then that one broke, and then a few Christmases later, I got another Batman VHS. And so, I mean, I pretty much, it's one of my top 10 favorite films. I still love it. Um, my favorite film now is The Godfather. Number three, my favorite TV show. Anybody who knows me, in fact, I'm wearing a Vandal A Industry shirt right now. So, my favorite TV show of all time is Seinfeld. Number four, my favorite Saturday morning kids show. Well, I'll be honest with you. I was never really into the Saturday morning cartoons thing. Um, I was actually always up doing stuff. I never got into the whole Saturday morning cartoons. If I did, it was very briefly, and I don't remember it, but because I always remember waking up and going outside. I just loved being outside. But out of all of them, I would say I remember watching Power Rangers, and I don't even know if that came on Saturday morning. Maybe it was later. Um, but yeah, and yeah, so that's it for the questions this time. If you guys have any other questions, you could just shoot them to me in an email, RyanCinematicObsessions@gmail.com, or you could just leave a comment under the video if you're watching on YouTube. Send me a Facebook message, whatever you want. I will be glad to answer it. Um, so next, I'm gonna talk about, um, I guess you could say, I was gonna talk about three films, but I think I'm gonna talk about really one first, or one now. Then I'll save the other two for the next podcast that I'm gonna do in a few days. But it is F.W. Murnau's Sunrise. I think it came out in 1927, I believe, and it is a film I've always wanted to see. It's called Sunrise, a poem or a song of two humans, and I've always wanted to see it. It won one of the first Oscars for, I think it was unique motion picture. Some people just say it was just an older term or once a time term for best picture. Sometimes it says best picture, what have you. It was one of the first Academy Award winners, and so I've always wanted to see it, but it just never really had a good print. Well, recently, me and Luke have been getting into silent films, and so I actually ordered with birthday money the new, not the, it's not new, it's new to me, but it's the Masters of Cinema UK release of Sunrise. It's the UK Eureka series, Masters of Cinema series, and just so happens it was a region-free Blu-ray, so I was able to order it because I don't have a region-free player. And the movie itself is, a little over an hour and a half, and I always knew it was about, a couple, basically, but I didn't really know what it was about. And, you know, basically, the movie blew me away. It was like, you know, romance and then thrilling, and I guess you could say it's basically almost like a couple is going through, I guess you could say, a trial in their relationship. I don't want to give away why because I don't want to spoil it, because it's just you need to go into this film knowing as little as possible to enjoy it completely to the fullest. Um, and so you're just basically with this couple for like an hour and a half, and some of the this movie can makes you laugh. It made me cry. It made me, shake the edge of on the edge of my seat, and it just blew me away visually. And that's not even talking about the technical side of the film, which is breathtaking in terms of how the camera was used for a silent film, like how it glided, how it just, I don't know, it just flowed from scene to scene. And I actually read that FW Murnau did not like using titles in the film, like, intertitles. So at the beginning of the film, he had some, and then by the end of the film, it just basically, he phased them out. So it's basically a true silent film. You rarely get any, you know, dialogue at all. And it's basically probably 80% visual, and it just pulls you in, and the power that this film has. I literally felt every emotion while I watched this film, and it is a masterpiece. And I remember when I first watched it, I texted Luke and I was like, dude, screw all my favorite films. This film is amazing. This is the film of all time. And of course, as I got off that cloud that I was on because of that, I actually, you know, seriously evaluated it, and definitely will consider it one of my top 20 favorite films of all time now, and one of the best films ever made. That's what cinema is all about. So I highly recommend you pick that up. There is a US release too, so I would suggest it you blind buy it just to have it, a piece of history. And and it's just spectacular. All the practical effects, the way they do some of the special effects in general, and the acting is just amazing. Close-up camera shots, and you see the full emotion, almost like the characters were actually going through this, was actually having an emotional struggle, or was having these happy moments. I mean, you see these faces, and they're completely believable, and it was shocking to see because it was so real for this time period. And I don't know, it's just amazing. So, but that's going to be it for this podcast. I'm actually splitting it in half. This is the first part of um, this agenda, I guess you could say, and I'm going to be coming out with the next part in a few days. So I'm probably going to do two podcasts the coming week. So, um, as always, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel, following me on Facebook, Instagram, all the above. And any questions, comments, or just anything, suggestions, just feel free to let me know. Thank you very much for watching, or thank you very much for listening, and I will see you guys in the next video or podcast. See ya.